ما بهلين ما بعركن لور كليه أن سريد لهن سريدنا ما عركن حمالي
ويا حمالي باور
شقة ما بهلين كل إنهم بارير كوتاي نكون بيكو حرنت السدي أن كرب حلهن دبتان يا إلهي وين واحد.
A new season and rain drips into the family home. Mohammed is angry and bitter about his situation. Halima gets distressed and leaves the discussion.
بنتد معها وارنتد عالم كسوح كورنا وصل لي هدي دنيا تلوسينا واحد ما أنت صومالي دلوقتي سلاماركين.
Mohammed wants to know why he has received so little during these years of crisis. This is how he sees it.
الله واحد إماله نك مركب مقالة وهم تبدأ يا كتير وكوالا ودي بس تكامل دي بيودي يلا عشان كي مع السريد بقول كارتون السريد اللي يسنه تذكر لو كان كميت أنا اللي مثلا لو حساق المية عن جالك وعنو مسوقت.
Somalis lost their place in the world when the central government collapsed in 1991. Dictator Mohamed Siad Barre was driven out of Mogadishu. US troops arrived when Somalia became anarchic under competing factions. Civilian suffering was enormous. There was widespread famine. Aid was hijacked. It was one of the spoils of war. Intervention by the US and UN failed to bring peace, and in 1995, international troops pulled out. Humanitarian assistance could not do what it needed to do.
We still have no one permanently based in Mogadishu.
Delivering aid to Somalia has continued to be a problem, explains Philippe Lazzarini, senior humanitarian official for the UN.
We are still in an environment which is very explosive, extremely fragile. Today, I mean, we might even be on the eve of a new fightings all over the country. So I would say the security situation is definitely a concern.
Because assistance is scarce in Somalia, there is always a scramble to grab it when it arrives. Keeping track of it is difficult. In Afmado, during the drought, there was a lot of food aid in the shops and a lot of complaints from the poor. But without an accountable authority, it is impossible to find out what really happens. And conflict is back on the agenda. Here, Sheikh Sharif Sheikh Ahmed, chairman of the courts, declares jihad, holy war, against neighbouring Ethiopia. The US accuses the courts of harbouring terrorists. Sheikh Sharif accuses Ethiopia of having troops inside Somalia's borders. Somalia's neighbours have thrown their weight behind the internationally backed Transitional Federal Government, the TFG. Formed in exile after nearly 2 years of talks, it is a government in waiting. It resides in Baidoa, preparing to get established in the capital. So the Islamic courts prepare to fight. Military camps retrain the young militia who preyed on society so long and re-educate them. They will fight again. Now they say it is for their country and their religion.
qoriga wax lagu maamuli jiray hadda ilaahay toobad keenan ka soo hanuunay alxamdulillah rabbil alamin waa wax la soo dhaafay.
People are told to prepare for jihad. After the years of chaos, there is an appetite for discipline. Here, the scene after an execution of a murderer by an 8-man firing squad. Strict religious and moral standards are being imposed by the courts. What does the future hold now? Not everyone is happy about the change. In the shadowy markets and back streets of Mogadishu, people complain their cinemas and entertainments have been closed down, and cats, a traditional narcotic leaf widely used, has been banned. And so a humanitarian opportunity could quickly turn into a humanitarian crisis. Somalis are fleeing their country again, most, it seems, out of fear of what might happen. Here at the Kenyan border, Somalis wait to be taken to a camp. Some have been refugees many times. Jeff Wordley, protection officer for the UN Refugee Agency, receives people as they arrive and tries to cope with the new influx, arranging transport and shelter.
Many of the people who have arrived in these camps and have come into Kenya have been reporting the reasons for their flight as the fear, not just because fighting has affected them, but also the fear of major fighting. And that seems to be one of the driving factors in people's flight. Secondly, there seems to be a number of people that are arriving who are objecting to Sharia law in Somalia, which is perhaps not surprising when one considers that it was a relatively secular country, including the fact that they are not receiving any form of assistance, and they've just found life just too difficult to survive.
Camp life means shelter and food, but sometimes bitter competition for basic resources. Tensions from Somalia spills into the camp. Here a fight over shelter and the Kenyan police move in. Neighbouring countries are nervous about security on the Somali border. Then the worst regional floods in years, and many Somalis who have just struggled with drought find themselves dispossessed by water. Flash floods overwhelm the temporary shelters of the new arrivals. Flooding affected most of southern Somalia, causing more displacement, but temporarily holding back fighting.
I'm very, very concerned and worried about the near future of Somalia. I think the Somalis have shown an incredible resilience capacity. In a country, for example, where you have malnutrition threshold above 20%, this would trigger massive humanitarian assistance, whereas in Somalia this has become the routine. I mean, people are going from unprecedented drought to one of the worst flood, and we are speaking about adding to this people a possible broad-scale conflict in the country. And we really hope that if that would be the case, to allow, I mean, these people to get the necessary assistance, protection, and their human dignity to be respected.
The future hangs in the balance. The international community continues to weigh the options. The nation is still without a state, and so Somalis, for now, remain in the twilight zone.